Hi, my name is Michael O'Brien, and I'm a typical New Yorker. At 35 years old, I've already made good progress in my career, working as a manager at a large IT company in the heart of Manhattan. My life is a never-ending race. Meetings, conference calls, reports, deadlines. Sometimes I feel like a squirrel in a wheel, but I'm used to this rhythm. At home, my beloved wife, Emily, is waiting for me. We've been married for 5 years, and I still can't believe that this beautiful blonde chose me. Emily works as a PR manager for a fashion glossy magazine and is always up to date with the latest trends. The only dark spot on our family life is her mother, Susan. Don't get me wrong, Susan is the sweetest woman, but she's the kind of mother who overprotects her daughters, even when they're adults. Susan is always calling Emily, giving unsolicited advice, and always wanting to drop by for a cup of tea. I try to be nice to her, but inwardly I shrink when I hear her voice. And it should have happened that today, after a hell of a day at work, I ran into Susan in the elevator of our building. I could hardly stand on my feet from fatigue and dreamed of getting to my apartment, taking a shower, and collapsing on the couch. But that's not what fate had in store for me. "Michael, honey, you look pale. Are you working overtime again?" Susan began by giving me an appraising look. "It's just been a busy week. BJKJ," I replied evasively, trying to give her a polite smile. "I'll get some sleep over the weekend." "I hope you're eating well." "Emily said you were eating a lot of fast food." "VJKJJ," Susan persisted. I was about to tell her that my diet wasn't her concern, but the elevator dinged and stopped. The lights blinked on and off. Susan and I looked at each other in the semi-darkness. "What the hell is that?" she asked nervously. "Why did we stop?" I pressed the emergency button, but nothing happened. I pulled out my cell phone and there was no cell service. It looked like we were stuck here for a long time. That's lucky. "Don't worry, Susan. VJKJ." I tried to reassure my mother-in-law, though I could feel myself getting anxious. "It's probably just a temporary problem. They'll get us out of here soon." "Easy for you to say," Susan snorted. "What if we're stuck here for hours? I'm claustrophobic, by the way." I sighed. Not only was I trapped in an elevator, but I was in the company of my panicked mother-in-law. I had to distract her before she became hysterical. "Let me tell you a funny story from work," I suggested, sitting down on the floor of the elevator. "Just imagine, today at a meeting our CFO fell asleep and snored all over the room." Susan reluctantly sank down beside me, wrapping her arms around her knees. "Come on, tell me about it, VDJKJ," she mumbled. "There's nothing to do anyway." I began to describe the curious incident in color, trying to embellish the details. Susan listened, occasionally humming and shaking her head. Gradually her shoulders relaxed and a shadow of a smile appeared on her face. The story flowed smoothly into another, then another. We recalled funny moments from our lives, shared stories from our childhood and youth. I learned that Susan used to work as a school teacher and still dreams of traveling around the world. And she was surprised to discover that I was good at classical literature and even wrote poetry. Time dragged on slowly. It was getting hotter and hotter in the elevator. Sweat trickled down my back. My shirt clung to my body unpleasantly. Susan looked soaked too, her usually flawless hair disheveled. "Whew, it's a scorcher," she muttered, waving her palm around. "I hope we don't suffocate in here." "Why don't we take off our outerwear?" I suggested. "No one's looking at us anyway." Susan hesitated but then nodded. We both pulled off our jackets and loosened our collars. I tried not to stare at my mother-in-law, but I couldn't help noticing how the tight blouse emphasized her breasts. What the hell am I thinking? In the semi-darkness of the elevator, our voices sounded muffled, creating a strange, intimate atmosphere. We continued to talk about everything, our fears and hopes, our secret desires and unfulfilled dreams. I had no idea that Susan and I could have so much in common. "You know, I once wanted to be an actress," VDJKJ, she said, staring into space. "I even joined a theater studio after high school. But then I met Emily's father, fell in love and gave it all up. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if—" Her voice trembled. I reached out and put my hand over hers. It was instinctive, as if I wanted to comfort and support her. Susan flinched, but didn't pull away. "There are many choices in life, VJKJ," I said quietly. "You never know if you're making the right choice, but you can't go back to the past. All we can do is move forward." Our eyes met. In the semi-darkness, Susan's eyes seemed huge and brilliant. For a moment I felt a strange attraction, a magnetic pull to press myself against her, to breathe in the scent of her skin. It was like an obsession. I pulled my hand away and averted my eyes. I had to pull myself together. It was just the heat and fatigue, nothing more. Susan is my wife's mother, after all. I have no right to think of her like this. Would you like some water? I think I had a bottle in my bag, VDJKJ, I mumbled, just to change the subject. Yes, please, VJKJ, Susan said. Her voice sounded hoarse. I opened the bottle with trembling hands and handed it to Susan. She gulped greedily, and I stared mesmerized as her throat moved as she took a sip. Shit, what's happening to me? Taking a few sips, I handed the bottle back to Susan. Our fingers touched, and I felt like I'd been electrocuted. I wanted to stroke her hand, run my fingertips over her soft skin. Stop. I mentally slapped myself. You can't do that. You have to keep your distance, keep your mind clear. But in a confined space, alone with Susan, it was so hard to do that. We sat closer and closer, almost touching each other's shoulders. I could feel Susan's heat, hear her intermittent breathing. I felt a strange longing in my chest and my heart was racing. My mind told me to move away, to stop this dangerous flirtation. But my body felt numb, unwilling to obey. I couldn't take my eyes off Susan's open lips, the sweat dripping down her neck into the hollow between her breasts. Michael, she breathed out, barely audible. Rui, I can't resist anymore. The next moment, her lips were on mine. The kiss was greedy, feverish, almost rough. I responded with equal fervor, pulling Susan to me, pressing my whole body into her. We kissed frantically like two animals hungry for affection. Susan's hands roamed my chest, trying to unbutton my shirt. I wasted no time in caressing her back, her buttocks, her thighs. My mind drifted away, dissolving into the madness that was sweeping over us. I knew we were doing something terrible, unforgivable, but I couldn't stop. Desire swamped me completely, displacing all moral principles and inhibitions. Time stopped. There was only our entwined bodies, only the pulsation of blood in our veins and the sweet languor in every cell. Once in a while, I caught a glimpse of mad passion in Susan's hazy eyes and fell deeper into the maelstrom. Afterward, we lay on the elevator floor, breathing heavily. Shame and satisfaction struggled inside me. How could I have done that to Emily? But at the same time, I couldn't help but admit that it was amazing. 2 hours later, we were finally released from the elevator. The rescuers led us outside, and I struggled to make eye contact with a concerned Emily. Susan averted her gaze, adjusting her loose blouse. In the days that followed, Susan and I avoided each other. There was an awkward silence at family dinners. Emily could see that something was wrong, but I couldn't admit to her what had happened. A week later, Susan invited me to have coffee alone. Sitting across from her, I didn't know what to expect. VDJNJ, Michael, we need to talk about what happened. DJ KKJ, she began, looking me in the eye. VDJNJ, I know it was a mistake, but I can't stop thinking about you. DJ KJ, I was silent, mulling over her words. Part of me wanted to send everything to hell and run away with Susan wherever the hell I was going, but I knew I couldn't do that to Emily. She didn't deserve to be betrayed like that. So I told Susan that nothing could happen between us. No matter how I felt about her, my family was more important. We agreed to keep what happened a secret and move on with our lives as if nothing had happened. Years later, I still remember that day in the elevator, the passion, the madness. Sometimes I catch Susan's wistful look and realize she hasn't forgotten either. But we both know what happened has to stay in the past. That's the price of marital happiness. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.